So I'm just gonna start with getting diagnosed. So I got diagnosed in early January, in January 2013, and I was 18 years old. I had just turned 18, and so right after Christmas, I went into the hospital. But leading up to that, there's a lot of stuff leading up to it, and I had the main what made me go to the doctor and like I knew something was wrong was a swollen lymph node. Mine hurt really bad, and they grew. They were huge. And throughout the past year, I tore my Achilles with cheer. Nothing really to do with it. But then right after that, I got shingles. And that was an experience on its own. Shingles are so painful. Right after I got shingles, as they were kind of going away, it was when that lymph node, the lymph node was just big. And my mom was like, no, it was one night I just couldn't take the pain anymore. So we went to the emergency room right here. There's an emergency room or hospital right by my house. And, they did the CAT scan and stuff. And she's like, oh, you're totally fine. But we do think there's something in there, obviously. So they sent me to Memorial Hermann Children's in Downtown Medical Center here in Houston. And I stayed there for a couple days. They didn't find anything, so they just said it was a cyst. And they drained it. I got the surgery. They put a tube, a little tube in my neck where the swollen lymph node or cyst was. And for a couple of days, I was just in a hospital room, which actually, Memorial Hermann Children's is very nice. I've never had such a beautiful hospital experience. Not that the hospital is fun, but the people there were really nice. But this was when I was 17, so I was in the children's section, which I didn't mind at all, because I am totally a child. And that hurt. And my neck was wrapped up, ugly, bulgy for a couple days. And then, it went away. And they were like, okay, go home. So 3 days, 4 days later, everything's fine, and I'm going home. So I start back with my normal life. Nothing's wrong, and I'm like, woo. And it was around Christmas. It was Christmas break. That swollen lymph node came back bigger than ever and more painful than ever. I was feeling really sick, and my mom wasn't able to be there with me. So my mom, when she got home, she was like, no, not again. And we just kind of let it be for a day. And the next day, I went with my cousin to get our nails done. And I went to the nail salon, and I just started feeling horrible. And so my mom called my doctor, my ENT, and I went to him. And he was like, mind you, all of this that's happening again is 6 months after I had that tube sticking out of my neck and they drained it and said, oh, everything's fine. He looked at it. I got probably another CAT scan, and in the CAT scan though, or the MRI, I'm pretty sure it was a CAT scan, there was just blotchiness all in my neck and down here a little bit, but not in my chest, but just right here. It was cottage cheese looking x-ray. It was ugly. And he was just I mean, it could be a cyst, but he wasn't sure. So he gave me antibiotics, and he was like, these antibiotics should work if it's if it's a cyst again. And he was like, it should go down within a couple of days. Okay, that's fine. So I'm taking these antibiotics, but I'm still feeling bad, and it's not helping at all. So my mom calls back, and he's like, okay, my mom's at work. And I call her and I tell her, I still don't feel good. I just don't feel good. And so she calls him, and my mom rushes home, and he wants me to go get another CAT scan or MRI. See, I can't remember. And I go back to his office. He looks at it. This is all in one day. And he's like, you could tell he was like, that doesn't look right. He immediately threw me to the hospital. I went to the hospital, and so we still didn't know what it was, because it clearly wasn't a cyst anymore. I probably had 2 MRIs by this time, and they decide that they want to give me a biopsy where this humongo gigantic thing is. And I'm also on IV antibiotics at this time. I'm at the hospital, so I'm on fluids, antibiotics, and everything. And so it got, the pain went away, but the ball was still there. The most crazy thing ever, I got the biopsy awake, and the thickest needle ever, like so thick of a needle, he stuck in there, numbed me first, obviously, but he just stuck it in there and I'm awake and I'm like, oh my god. And the only thing I can feel is like pressure. It didn't hurt, it was just pressure, but could you imagine? No, it was horrid. After I had been in the hospital for a good 3 days by that point. Later, so he comes in, my ENT, he comes in and he talks to me and he's like, yeah, we're not really sure yet. It kind of seemed like he knew, but he didn't know for sure, so he didn't want to say anything till he knew exactly what was going on, which is understandable. You don't want to give false information, especially with your health. I'm at the hospital for another day. The next day comes, and I had a CAT scan, I think, early, and he said he saw something in my nose that he wanted to check. So he just comes in and he sticks a goddamn scope up my nose, it's like, well, I call it a scope. I think that's what it's called. I don't know, but it's like a tube thing. Kind of looks like a iPhone charger, except it's really a camera on one side. He sticks up my freaking nose, and he can see like everything. And then he's like, okay, I don't see anything really, but it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt. He goes back to do,
I don't know, he left.
and then when he came back to talk to me, he asked my mom to leave the room. My mom was there, and one of my good friends was there, and he asked both of them to leave the room. And I knew there was something was up. I wasn't expecting him to be like, oh, you're totally fine, you just have this big thing. I knew something was wrong. So he just sat next to my bedside and said,
so you have cancer.
And the feeling, like what you feel during those like 3 seconds of like, it's indescribable. And of course, as my like generation, my phone was in my hand, and so the immediate thing I did was text my boyfriend's mom, who is like my second mom. She's like my best friend / mom. So I'm really close to her. So I text her, and I was in shock. So all I said was, so I have cancer, in like a kind of pissy mood. She obviously knew, but I mean, it sucks for her. She's like the first person to find out, I guess. But for her to hear like that way, I text her, and I mean, I feel bad that I did that today. We talk about it all the time, but it's kind of funny now, but totally wasn't then. I was in shock, and I did not like start crying or anything. The first question I asked him was basically, will I die? And he didn't have an answer, which is totally fine. When he kind of didn't have an answer, I moved immediately to what is the survival rate and what type of cancer do I have? And what he said at the time was undifferentiated carcinoma. He didn't really know what it was. They knew I had cancer, but they didn't know like where it was coming from, so they didn't know what to call it. He said there is no, like I couldn't tell you what the life expectancy is right now, because you don't know your stage, you don't know this, you don't know that. We don't really know anything except for the fact that you do have cancer. My mom and my friend are still waiting outside at this time. I tell him to get my mom, and my mom comes in the room, and I can't break weird news like that. Like, I was still not crying at this point, but I just can't break that news to someone, especially my mom or to anyone. I just don't like telling, like, I don't know. I asked him if he could tell her. So he did. She took it well in that point, because I do not like seeing people cry. I don't know what to do in those situations. Well, I mean, it just depends. When you're crying for me, I don't know what to do in those situations. And it's very, very weird. So my mom didn't cry. All she said was, we'll get through it. It's okay. Like, she just wanted to know, where do we start? What happens now? And then my friend, I told him, okay, my friend can come in. He was like, should I tell her to leave? And I was like, no. I mean, she's here. She's gonna know. She's a good friend of mine. We don't really tell her. She just kind of hears us talking, so she knows. She finds out that way. That's basically that. That is how I was diagnosed. That is what happens. And after that, I just remember getting so much love and support from people. I really, I mean, yes, I did shed, I said I didn't cry, But I did have my moment where I broke down. Of course I did. But I broke down the second that my boyfriend's mom, she called me right after I texted her, of course. And when she called me, when I heard her voice, I just started bawling. That was probably, I've cried about it so much, but at the beginning. I think I released most of it out in that cry. I don't think I've ever cried so hard. I was basically screaming, crying.
Like someone had just stabbed me in the gut.
I didn't really want to just be like the person that just like, hey, Twitter, I have cancer. Like, I don't want to tell people like that, nor did I want to make it seem like, I don't know, but I just didn't want, like, I just wasn't telling anyone. Obviously my close friends and family, but I just wasn't announcing it. And of course the word gets out fast, really, really fast. So, immediately that my cheer coaches came to visit me, amazing cheer coaches. I did school cheer, which I had just made captain for, so I was just like, what am I gonna do? But it all worked out. And then my cheer coaches from competitive cheer also came, which was so awesome, and everyone was so supportive, and even my school principal came, so that was awesome. That's how I was diagnosed. I don't want anyone feeling bad for me, because I don't feel bad for me. I'm so blessed.